Hello, hello, and good morning. Yes, as we say, we make it happen, right? I woke up a little gray, then the weather, I'm like, we're welcoming that rain, got a little caffeine going, and we're excited because we're gonna meet a new entrepreneur today. I'm excited, Lori. But if this is your first time with us, hello, my name is Sadie Uribe, and I'm the media producer for the Los Angeles Regional SBDC. The SBDC is a national program with over 1,000 locations across the country helping to stimulate economic growth through business advising and development. The LASBDC offers no-cost services through funding provided by the U.S. Small Business Administration, SBA, and from the California Office of the Small Business Advocate. It's your tax dollars at work. The Los Angeles Regional SBDC network operates 7 service locations throughout Los Angeles, Santa Barbara, and Ventura counties. Our services are also offered virtually. We are here to help. We empower small business owners by offering tailored solutions through personalized one-on-one business advising, cutting-edge workshops, and comprehensive programs, all provided at no cost. We are dedicated to supporting your entrepreneurial journey every step of the way. Lori, can you tell I'm a little too excited right now?
You are, Sadie, and you know what? My voice is going from talking too much. Like I said, I sometimes feel like this must be what it's like to be a famous singer. You're just always talking. And on that note, I always have to laugh at that because I remember when I was a little girl, my father used to say to me, "Can you just sit down and be quiet for a little bit?" Well, I now think my father's passed away decades ago. I would think, well, Daddy, look, I get paid to talk. Isn't that a
Look at
funny
me
thing?
now.
And yeah, look at me now. I can talk, 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 and people want me to talk more. So anyway, guys, yeah, let's get started today with our show. We got a great guest coming up, lots of exciting things happening today. And of course, we've got the financial literacy, and I just finished session 1. You can jump in session 2 and 3. I know I sound like I'm, always talking about this, but I can't speak enough of how important it is to know your numbers. I always say it's important to know your numbers. It's more important now than ever. I always say that too. I know, but it is. Oh, speaking of the numbers too, I made an announcement last week as a tentative thought. Okay. I've been tentatively thinking, and we're getting closer to actually have it a new series. Not instead of Small Biz Talk's going to be here, but a new series that will be Tuesdays at 11, probably launch next month, and it's going to be Ask a CFO, and it's going to be me, and I'm going to go over CFO stuff, and you guys get to ask questions and conversations, anything finance, legal structures. When we have, if those long-term people, we have Ask Lori. When I don't have a guest, I have Ask Lori, and I always say to Sadie, okay, we'll have a few questions and then we'll end. And Sadie always reminds me, no, you're going to go over. There's so many questions. So this is a grand opportunity, 1 hour every single week talking CFO stuff. So that's an upcoming thing. I'll let you know when that's happening. But right now, every Tuesday and Thursday, Sadie and I are still at 11 a.m. doing all kinds of questions and answering about the SBA loans, other resources to the fire resources available, et cetera. And so when that is no longer needed, that's when I'm going to bring the CFO show into be. Now, next week we have Sebastian come on, and I had Max on. I think it's been about a month now, and we were talking about funding. And one of the topics that came up of special interest is this small business micro funding. And Sebastian, I would say, is a expert on that. He works with these small companies all the time and helps them to get these micro loans. So I wanted him to come on and really focus about how to get a micro loan, what is required, what can you expect in interest rate, maybe some of the top lenders that do it, all topics about micro funding. And then I'm having Dahlia come back on at the end of the month. She's one of our all-time favorites. People love when Dahlia comes on, of DF Accounting Services. And I was talking to her a lot about the difficulty of syncing I'm going to use QuickBooks as an example, but your data with an accounting system and not knowing how to make some separate journal entries. We were talking about payroll entries. We were talking about Cal Savers. And I wanted her to come on and really talk a little bit about these type of syncing and other issues she sees in accounting that people do mistakes on. And then, of course, you send your document to your tax person, they don't check, and then you have a difficulty with your tax returns, which I'm going to stop this share and I'm going to share another one. Speaking of tax season is upon us, and Sadie is going to put this link in. This is, I always get all these emails because I'm an enrolled agent, and believe me, I get emails. I probably get 5, 6 emails every single day from the IRS every day. But I go through them, and when I get a good one, I share with you. And so this is, it should be able, you should be able to get to the link, even though it came to me. I went to where they posted on the IRS. So here is some tips to help make tax season go smoothly. And it has some really, it has some good information. But when you click on other things, like you can get the IRS services guide, and this will allow you to see, not see, I don't know if they have CPAs in here. It may just be EAs. I don't know, but you can link and go into your zip code and see about certified preparers, tax preparers. So you can get a list of different people here. And then they had another link over here. I got to get Zoom out of my way, where they have, there we go. This is a great, and this is all on the one link. This is an IRS services guide, so you can get general tax information, find a qualified professional. If you are unable to make the payment, if you want to check on your status, if you want to make a tax payment. I mean, this is a great, great, great page, okay? So those are 3 links or one link that gets you to these that you might want to bookmark as tax season is upon us, and you can basically go get those resources, which of course I'm sure I'll be trying to talk about a lot of things tax wise as it's coming up, including how do I find out where my refund is, because that's always something that everybody wants to know when they get further down the road. Okay, guys, enough talking about tax. Let's get into the fun part of our show today. I'm very excited to have our guest today. Tiera Click is a natural healer and therapist by trade. With nearly a decade of experience supporting individuals facing mental health and behavioral challenges, intellectual development disabilities, and severe diagnosis. As an associate marriage and family therapist and associate professional clinical counselor, Tiera has worked not only with individuals in need, but also with their support systems. Recognizing the need for a more intimate, goal-oriented approach to self-improvement and self-love, Tiera founded When the Mind Clicks LLC. Through coaching, education, and community, she provides actionable strategies that empower clients to thrive in even the most challenging circumstances. Tiera, welcome, welcome to the show. So glad to have you here today.
Hi, thank you for having me.
I have to first do a shout out to Myra, and she is at one of our other associate SBDCs at the PCR. And Myra is the one who introduced us and said, Tiera needs to be on your show. So I'm sure Myra's listening out there. Shout out to Myra. Thank you so much for providing the information to Tiera. Now, Tiera, there's so many things we were talking a bit before the show. There's so many different angles that I would love to explore during this interview, from your background to what you do to also the positive message that you bring to individuals. Because one of the things I say on a weekly basis is own your own power. Take your power back, own your power. So there's a whole lot of information we can get into from there. But first, I want to say to the audience, in relative terms, Tiera's a new business owner, not decades, a new business owner. So what I'm
Yep.
saying to you guys is Tiera's in the middle of it, exactly where you guys, she's in the middle of it. She's feeling it, she's experiencing it. So we got a live walk down the entrepreneurial emotional pathway interview here. So Tiera, how did you first get an interest in your profession? Always, or history? Tell me how you got where you are today.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, thank you for having me. And yes, I'm right in the thick of it. So I think, not I think, I know that growing up, I experienced a lot of different situations, traumatic events that caused me to build resilience. After that, I noticed a lot of people would ask me for advice. A lot of friends would come to me for advice, and, just naturally throughout, grade school, high school, things like that. Um, so that I always had sort of that ability to support people through their challenges. I then started doing music where I wanted to inspire people through my words and performance and showing up. Made a pivot from there, started studying communication. Right. At that point, got a bachelor's in communication, and I started to realize, okay, maybe my gift is my words, my voice, my, ability to just show up and inspire. And from there, I started going down the behavioral therapy route. I was a behavioral therapist for a couple of years. Then I stepped into mental health, and now I'm a business owner doing wellness, mental health education, helping people build their self concept and step into their best selves. So to me, all of that was connected. And that's what led me to where I am today.
It's so interesting to me, and I speak from my own biography as well. As much as we can look back on our own existence and our pathways, and it seems so disjointed at time, you get to a point where it's all makes sense. If I didn't
Right.
have this experience, I wouldn't have that. If I didn't have this experience, and it sounds like yours led you down this pathway to be exactly where you are right now.
Right, right. And they each were stepping stones to get to the next position. My communication degree absolutely correlates with my psychology degree. And then that absolutely correlates to what I'm doing today. So they all really are connected.
That's one of the changes I just have to, say difference in my age, my generation, I'm 60, in my generation compared to the generations after me is when I was being brought up, it was more of that stay with one thing. And if you don't pick something at 18 and you're it when you're old, you're flaky,
Yeah.
right? And I think the human spirit does best when it gets to experience things and play. I just kind of think that's our purpose is to have different experiences and why just make sure we go down that one pathway? That seems so limiting when the spirit wants to go everywhere. But
Right, right. And helped me to get a better understanding of where I needed to be. And I'm still discovering. So, but I was blessed enough to have a very supportive family that was like, okay, this is what you want to do. Okay, here's how you got to be the best at that. Oh, you want to change? Okay, you want to do this? Let's support you in doing this. Like, let's tackle that. So that gave me a lot of room to explore.
absolutely. So let's talk a little bit about Tira, the business person. You're at that stage, which is so scary for most, that venturing out on your own and then suddenly saying, oh my God, it's all me. So what made you find, I know, yeah, I still get on
Yeah.
stage. Like I told you guys, we got one right in the front. We got some good stuff today. We're getting one live as can be. I say that to people who've been in business 10, 15 years, and they're like, yeah, and they kind of remember you say you were like, oh yeah, I'm right there. I'm right there with you. So first, walk us back to the steps that made you make that step. What was the impetus to say, okay, I'm doing it now. It's me.
Yeah. So I started my business in 2023. That's when I, did everything I needed to get the LLC, but I was still in corporate. And for me, I thought, I'll do my corporate job, climb the ladder here. Every corporate space I was in, I was like looking to excel at, becoming team lead, doing all these different things. And I really enjoyed that. And I was had my business on the side, would touch on it after hours or, um, but then last year I was over the summer thinking, okay, I really need to step into my business. I like working for other people, but I really want to navigate my own space, right? I want to build my own space. There's a certain direction I like to take things. And although I'm in these lead positions, I don't have the power to change the way the program's running. Um, so I thought about leaving my job last summer. When I was leaving, they actually offered me a raise and another position. So I stayed. A few months later, God was like, girl, go. And I was laid off.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, God gave me the boot.
That's awesome.
So I was like, okay. And what's funny is as soon as I drove off of that property, I felt a weight that was like actually lifted off of me. And I wouldn't have left. Like logically, I'm like, okay, a salary is a steady income. This is what's happening. I can do my business on the side. So logically and survival mode me wouldn't have left. So again, like I said, God gave me the boot. And when I was laid off, that was the best day ever. That was October of last year, 2024. And since then, I have been a full-time entrepreneur. I do not plan on going back to corporate. And I realized how much I had been neglecting my business, how much more I can pour into it. And that's just my dream. And I've never felt better in a space, and more confident about my future.
That's a beautiful story. I always say that if we're on the edge and we need to be making a decision, we get so many chances to make it on our own, and eventually the new universe says, "Oh, you're going now. This is
Yeah,
where."
time to go.
Yeah, I've experienced it. In fact, at this age, I always go, okay, is there something you're trying to say, universe? I want to learn the easy way. Don't show me the hard way. I'm fully listening to any.
Right.
It's so funny. But, I can remember, and I had this vision that I haven't thought about in so many years, but suddenly it came back to me. And that was at 25 when I started my own company. And I had been in corporate and I was around everybody. And I think that's what made me think of it, because you were talking about leading and team leading and being around different people. Well, I made the decision. Mine was more desperation, company went under. But I found myself then sitting in the desk at my home, right? And
Mm,
all of a sudden, nobody was there. And it was the weirdest kind of experience. I felt like, if anybody's old enough to remember Lost in Space, when Will said, I just want to be alone, and then everybody disappeared, and Will was like, where'd everybody go? I kind of felt that way. And it was a little bit of an adjustment to kind of get on my feet again and start getting the
right.
momentum. Does this relate at all? Because I know I've heard entrepreneurs talk about that kind of stall feeling when they suddenly find themselves all on their own when they were around corporate or teams, etc. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think that tapping into momentum part is huge.
Yeah.
And like being in a space where you don't have a team, you don't have a supervisor, you don't have a time you're supposed to clock in, you don't have group or team meetings, all of those things, you do lose that when you step into the business world. So it is a little more difficult when it comes to task initiation, following through, accountability, brainstorming ideas, bouncing off, new ways to approach a situation. So that is something that I actually had to adjust to, realizing I have to wear multiple hats and take care of different parts of the business, rather than, okay, we're in a group meeting and you handle this, you handle this, you handle this, So maintaining that momentum outside of a group setting is important. And it's something that definitely was an adjustment period.
One, yeah, yeah, I can relate. Now, here, what's so fun about it? Because I get to ask you these like clinical type questions and business questions at the same time. So this is so fun. What I came to mind as you were speaking about it is discipline. And people have said to me throughout my life that I'm a very disciplined person, and they've always tried to ask me what helps me or how do I create such discipline inside myself. And I've thought about it so many times to myself. I think my discipline for many years was out of fear. If I didn't approach it,
Mm,
something bad was going to happen. So I was disciplined out of fear. You better take care of it. You'll be sorry, that. And,
mhm.
and I created a very disciplined. But I think part of it was inherent in me, and I eventually learned. Discipline seems so important to the entrepreneur as you were speaking. You have to make sure you manage all the tasks on your own. Do you think discipline is inherent in people? Is it a learned trait? You're a coach now for a lot of people. What do you find around the word discipline or any word you want to use within that concept?
Yeah, I do think that it's learned, or developed. I think it's innate within everyone. We have the capacity, but one of the things I actually talk about within my business is executive functioning skills. And executive functioning skills are the powerhouse of task initiation, organization, discipline, emotional regulation, self-regulation, all those different things. And to be honest, in childhood, if you are living in an adverse environment, or you're experiencing a lot of challenges, or you're not being tended to properly, your discipline can be impacted and never really watered,
Okay.
because you're maybe hyper vigilant because you're focusing on other things, maybe because you're focused on your own emotions or tending to someone else's emotions, whatever that may be. So I do think discipline is in all of us, but I think it needs to be nurtured, I think it needs to be built, I think it needs to be reinforced, and people need to understand its importance and how it plays a role in your success. But if you're not introduced to that, or you're dealing with too many different things to where you can't really show up in that space, then it's not being worked on. It's like fitness, you know, you need to practice mental fitness just like you go to the gym for mental fitness or for physical fitness, you know. So I think discipline needs to be worked on and highlighted and reinforced. But it is within all of us. That potential is definitely there within all of us.
Yeah, it's interesting as you were speaking, I was thinking about the gym, and one of the things that I know from being a longtime athlete, you can't always just feel like you want to go. Sometimes you got to say, no, we're going. And
Yeah, yeah.
Anthony Robbins years ago, go to old Anthony Robbins, because I listened to him when I was in my 20s. I still comment on it, but he used to say that motion creates emotion. And if you just start forcing yourself to go through the motion, and I used
Yeah.
to have this rule with the gym when I was really into working out on a very rigid schedule, that I would go and I say, if in 5 minutes I want to leave, I can. Well, the 5 minutes would come and I would never want to leave because I was already there. Yeah.
Motion. Yep.
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 So what I want to do is, now, and you correct me on what I'm going to say. I'll say it, and then you fill in the blank correctly if I get it wrong. But it sounds like what you've done is you've taken all of these skills and the credentials, and you've packaged them, and you are now presenting those skills to entrepreneurs and business people and individuals on how to be successful in their goals, etc. And I find that very interesting. So tell us about your, I'll call it coaching side, and you'll fix out any words that I need to change differently to what you're offering. But tell us about that aspect of your company.
Yeah. So when I provide coaching or workshops, it's to provide psychoeducation on ways to enhance your quality of life, optimize your wellness, become more self-sufficient, and step into your self-concept. So building on self-concept, that could include self-care, self-esteem, self-determination, self-discipline, self-awareness, right? All of those things are important for us to thrive and really have a good quality of life. When it comes to coaching, I primarily focus on people who are in major transitional periods, such as people who are recently discharged from a residential treatment center, recently released from a criminal justice program, recently stepping out of substance abuse treatment. So people who are in major transitions and about to lose access to all the providers they had or the structure or the programming that they have. Because I really want to decrease the likelihood of them returning and allow them to get their life back because we deserve to thrive, not just survive. So when it comes to coaching, that's primarily the audience I focus on. I focus on those individuals as well as their families, their system of support. But when it comes to workshops, I do come into corporate spaces. I do come and speak with staff. I come and, maybe do either speaking or trainings with staff and really show them how to implement a more positive approach to the way they're addressing mental health or communication or well-being within that space.
I love what you said. And, Sadie, you're going to have to capture this in the chat. We deserve to thrive, not just survive. I love that. I had to write that down and
Yeah.
capture it myself. I absolutely love that. No, speaking of the workshops, I know Sadie's going to be putting this in the chat if it hasn't already. You have some classes or workshops that are coming up. Let's take an opportunity to learn about those as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So my availability is opening up and I'm available for bookings if anyone would like me to come in and do a workshop or public speaking engagement. And really everything, I study positive psychology. So everything I do is geared towards strength, spotting, reframing, stepping into a higher, more elevated version of yourself or building that team into a better, more well-oiled machine. So with that being said, when it comes to workshops or speaking engagements, whatever the event is for or this program is for, I would get an understanding, okay, what are you guys looking to do? Are you looking to build resilience? Are you looking to, optimize wellness within this space? And based on that information, I will develop either curriculum or speech or what have you and show up and come to provide psychoeducation and inspire.
You had mentioned positive psychology. I think I said that right. If I got that
Yep,
right.
positive psychology.
Positive psychology and reframing. And this is an aspect about me that I never really chat about, but I'm also an NLP practitioner, which I'm sure you are.
Okay.
And exactly. And that was one of those things that made absolutely no sense. It was one I studied, I
Okay.
liked, I was interested in. I went and got the practitioners. I just found it fascinating. I would say to myself, why? I've had it for years. Why in the world am I doing this? There makes no sense, but I was gravitated towards, and I find that that is one of the foundational learnings that really impacted my life. And the reframing is a big thing in
Right.
NLP. You probably know. And for the audience, let's talk a little bit about reframing. And the reason I'm thinking it will be interesting to the audience, and you'll fill in the blanks for me, Tiara, I think that it is true. I'm going to say it this way. It is true being an entrepreneur, you have to wear all the hats. You have to, get funding it requires funding. You have to do your bookkeeping. All that's
Hmm.
true. But I think the big elephant in the room that we don't talk enough about is how do we deal with ourselves, our own beliefs about our ability to have confidence to say, no, this is what our prices is. I can go on and on. I think so much of success in entrepreneurship is what we believe about ourselves and what we think about ourselves. And I think in
Yeah.
cases, it requires some reframing of where we came from. I'm just going to just run with that, Tira, wherever direction
Yeah.
it should go for our audience.
Right. I mean, in terms of reframing and what you just said, it is true. We have to wear all these hats, or, we have to find funding, or we have to do these things. But if we're looking in the space of reframing, I get to wear all these hats. I get to decide the direction that the business is going in. I get to set my price, and I get to learn how to negotiate the price that I feel I deserve. Right. So that's an example of what reframing would look like. But there's two types of reframing. There's that reframing where you're actually changing what you're saying, the opposite, right? I'm changing it. But then there's the reframing that I'm challenging it. So what I just did was more of like the opposite reframing, right? Instead of I have to, I get to. Now, if we were going to challenge it, it would be more, I have to, find funding, I have to do this. But what an opportunity that is to grow. That's
Yeah,
challenging it rather than reframing it in a opposite manner. That's more of how you challenge that thought, because not everyone wants to jump to the other side of just switching it, um I have to find funding. No, I get to find funding. Some people bring up the like a reaction toward what they believe is toxic positivity, or things like that, or they don't want to say something they don't believe. Well, in that case, when you reframe, instead of making it an opposite statement, challenge that statement. I have to
I
find
love that.
funding. This is an opportunity for me to grow. This is an opportunity for me to learn how to find funding. I wonder who I should connect with to get that competency.
I love the just how it felt different, and the audience can comment on this. When you said I get to set my prices, I it just was an immediate
Yeah.
change the way
Yeah.
that and what I thought of in my mind, and I don't even know if I like this expression. I've always had a kind of like, I didn't like the expression, but it's used a lot. So it's the fake it till you make it, right? Now,
Hmm.
it could be, you're faking it, but really a lot of it is internally also fake it till you make it. And I know for some people that works really well, and other people it doesn't at all. So you mentioned that some people this works, some people doesn't, that works
Right.
for the entrepreneurs. They almost have to get a understanding, and it's a kind of a question to you, and I've felt this throughout my life. You have to get an understanding of how you tick to some degree. What will change your mindset or your thoughts?
Yeah.
Got to get to where you have a relationship to know how, because now you're an entrepreneur. You have no other people sitting next to you to bounce it off and pull you up. You almost have to become where you understand your own user manual, if I can call it
Hmm.
that weird way. Comments on that?
Yeah, I mean, that goes back to self-concept, directly self-awareness. If you are self-aware, you know your own learning style, you know the way you receive information, you know the best way that you can adapt. And if you practice that self-awareness, you'll optimize the way you show up in the world. So, yeah, I think that it really taps into knowing what's your baseline. And by baseline, it means what's your standard way of living, feeling, and being when you feel like the most calm, stable, secure. What does that look like? So you know if you're ever deviating from it. And I really think that self awareness and self curiosity is important in that capacity.
You know, there's two things you said that I absolutely love. I'm writing them here so I remember. And one is the baseline. I have been really over the years and decades and upon decades trying to be very conscious of, internally, what am I really telling myself,
Mhm,
and
mhm.
what am I really saying? And trying to look at those moments where I'm just sitting in peace and being very aware of how I am, what I'm saying, how I'm feeling, how my energy is to create
Right.
that baseline and then notice when I'm not and try to move into that space. Almost like I think I'm really talking about a mindfulness practice is what I'm really talking about here. But I do believe that as much as finance, everybody knows I'm always on the finance, as much as finance skills are important, I think I call it self-regulation. That's like Lori's word. I always call it self-regulation. I think that's an important part of entrepreneurship, and it's going to tell you whether you succeed or not. The
Yeah.
hardest time is when you're spiraling downhill and you're trying to catch yourself before you spiral. And I know I talk with entrepreneurs all the time, and they'll like something will happen, a customer will stop something, and then all of a sudden they spiral and they can't get out of that spiral. Can we talk
Yeah.
to any tools or techniques to try to halt that spiral when it starts to happen?
Absolutely. I mean, going back to what we said about discipline, right? If you can practice and hone in on that skill of discipline, forget your mood and follow through with what is in front of you, what you're supposed to do, that can alleviate a lot of that spiraling because regardless of how you're feeling, your emotions are getting pulled every which way, the discipline will kick in and say, okay, I'm feeling angry, but I'm still going to get on this bike, right?
Yeah,
I'm feeling sad, but I'm still going to show up. And I'm not talking about self neglect, but I am talking about follow through and creating that space for discipline. But in terms of if we're not already preset with that skill of discipline and you're spiraling, that's a time to go to your mental health toolkit, which I think everyone should have. I think everyone, once you identify what your baseline is, again, your baseline is where your standard calm, steady way of living is. When you identify what your baseline is, take some time to identify what triggers you have, what sort of emotional outbursts you have, what things can get you distracted, what sort of limiting beliefs or negative self talk you have. Try to identify all that while you're at your baseline and start to build a mental health toolkit so that when you start to spiral, you have something to immediately go back to. It's almost like a safety plan. So, a lot of what I teach is being proactive. Now, we can talk about being reactive in the moment I'm in the spiral, but I always err on the side of being proactive. So
yeah.
I think if you have a moment when you are at your baseline, you should predict what getting out of control looks like for you and set up a skill that will work for you in that moment. So
That
that includes self awareness.
Yeah, it really does. And I'm always amazed at the simplicity and practicality of a break, a walk, and breathing. It just is amazing. Like because I get so
Yeah.
involved, especially with clients and everything I got going on, and I'm trying to read legal copy and I don't understand. And then I get in my head, like, who are you? You don't even understand, that whole stuff. And then I just have to go, okay. And I always say, Lori, I want to file for a divorce and it's a conflict of interest. So you and I have to go for a walk right now because I can't get out from being around you. So but then
Hmm.
what amazes me is I come back and I'm like, but wait a minute, that sentence says this. I understand it now. Good old
Yeah. And when it comes to, like you said, a walk or going to get a breath of fresh air, I always tell people when you're looking at what tools work for you, think about these four categories. You can either do a feel good. A feel good is something like listen to music, maybe get in the pool,
okay.
maybe go put some candles. You can do a focus. A focus is like a puzzle, do Sudoku, read a book, something that maybe crochet, something that requires you to focus. Have fun. If you want to go out, go with some friends, go hang out, or distract. A distract can be something like painting, watching TV, whatever it is, make sure it falls under one of those four categories and know which time it calls for one of those results. So if I'm angry, I know myself well enough that if I'm angry, I'm not going to do have fun. And I'm not going to do have fun and I'm not going to do feel good. I'm probably going to need to focus. For me, anger goes with focus. And that's just me. If I'm angry, just I'll go do a puzzle. or I'll go put something together, build some furniture, like something that requires my focus. That's what works for me. If I'm sad, I might do a feel good. For me, if I'm sad, I might need to go put candles on and just, get in a warm bath, right? So just knowing yourself, that self-awareness and being proactive.
I love that. I absolutely love that. That is wonderful. I have said, but really this started because of my NLP back in my 20s, but I have always said, for me personally, the way I see my life is I have one important thing that I have to do, and that is learn how to manage my emotional states. I've said that to myself since I've been 20, so 40 years. And I've always realized that the emotions can, as my mother used to say, run amok. That old,
Mhm.
I'll run amok. But if I could manage my emotional states, I could create anything in my life. I've always felt that. But I love
Yeah.
your for and your understanding how to apply it. That's just beautiful. Now, you said another word that I absolutely love, and I think it's a word that we don't talk about enough. She's like, "Oh, which one you got for me now, Lori?" Because I pick on these little things that people maybe don't notice. Curiosity. You said the word curiosity. I absolutely adore the word curiosity. And I feel as though we leave it behind when we're children, and it's a gem that we need to bring with us. And I always
Yeah.
would tell when I teach people finance, become curious. Become
Yeah.
curious. And we're going to go in this in a second when I used to teach sales years ago. Curious, why is that person buying? Why is that person not buying? I think curiosity is a golden gem that we all should dust off our shelves and be amazed at what it does for us. You mentioned the word curiosity. Tiera, what's curiosity in your world?
Yeah. I would say curiosity is just the desire to know more, give yourself a little more insight. Um, it can lean into that more playful nature, right? Opening up your perspective, being less judgmental because you're curious about why someone might behave this way or have done something this way. But I think when it also comes to your own reactions to things, curiosity is important. One of the tools I like to use is the 5 whys whenever I'm reacting to something. In a really chaotic way, right? So the 5 whys really lean into curiosity. So let's say I'm going to make a situation, I'm in a relationship, right? And this person didn't answer the phone, and I start having anxiety, I'm crying, I'm freaking out, all of these different things. My curiosity would help me because I can do the 5 whys. The 5 whys are when you ask yourself about 5 times, why am I responding this way? Okay, why? Because they didn't answer the phone. Okay, but why are you crying? Well, because I feel neglected. Okay, why? Well, when I was a child, I would often ask for, what I needed, and I didn't get it right when I had requested it. Okay, why is this still bothering you? I guess I never addressed that. Okay, why do you feel that way about this person? Actually, I don't think I feel that way about this person. They actually might be busy and old wounds are coming up. Like curiosity can help you um, get out of a situation that's about to take you left and down that spiral of emotional dysregulation.
Yeah. Yeah. It always amazes me. I've said this throughout my life. I feel like we spend our entire adult life trying to get over those things that happened in our first 10 years of our life. And
Yeah.
I don't know if there's a grand purpose for that in design of the human being, but I just don't know anybody that gets out of those experiences without having to spend their whole life reworking and integrating them. But you can get
Yeah.
to a point where you acknowledge. I always say sometimes it's not that I won't still get triggered, but the time period between the triggering and recognizing the triggering, analyzing it and diffusing it,
Yeah.
that's what, at one point when I was younger, it was like, can't see the ends of that spectrum. And then I was like slowly closing in, and then I close in, and then I have my moments where I'm out there. But that's the concept, is not try. I always say it's kind of impossible to make us perfect. We already are
Yeah.
perfect. We don't have to strive for perfection. All we have to do is strive for an awareness and an ability to choose our responses and choose where we want to go and choose our
Yeah.
success in that.
And
Oh,
remember, you're not alone.
yeah.
I feel like a lot of times we get in our head and we think we're the only one going through this or the only one
Oh,
thinking
yeah.
about it that much or not being curious. But everyone, virtually everyone, is experiencing something similar in their minds. So just remembering that, and you're like not this odd person out, who can't seem to figure it out.
It's so true. When we share something with somebody, we usually end up finding out, wow, I'm not the only one that feels that
Yeah.
way. And that's the whole reason, like I was telling you before of this show, is these issues and the concerns and the fears and all this around an entrepreneur and the struggles. It's kind of like hidden and it's been glorified so much. It's like nobody wants to speak the truth about what it
Yeah.
really means to be an entrepreneur. And I wanted to speak the truth so everybody could say, hey, I'm not alone. Speaking
Yeah.
of which, I had a little note on something I wanted to get into, and this is a perfect launching of this. So, one of the biggest struggles I hear with most entrepreneurs is sales, getting customers, etc. Especially, when I say sales, you could be trying to make direct sales to the customers, or you're selling yourself to a distributor, you're selling yourself to a vendor. The fact is, we're always selling ourselves.
Yeah.
Most times, I don't see too many salespeople technically starting the companies. It's usually somebody created a product or has a service, meaning
Yeah.
that the bulk, not all, but the bulk of entrepreneurs didn't have a sales background, right? And so it's a new
Right.
experience. So suddenly they take that step, they're sitting in their house, nobody's around them, and they go, okay, I'm ready for business. And they're like, okay, I got to get somebody. And I see, Tiara, people go round and round with sales for 4 or 5 years till they have to shut down because they never get comfortable with it. You
Yeah.
have to then find clients. You had to know different than anybody else. You're still involved in it. Can you just go anywhere you want on that very important topic for our entrepreneurs?
Yeah, absolutely. First and foremost, when I first started this journey, I would be like, I'm not a salesperson, I'm not a marketing, I'm not in finance. But I had to change that language reframing because that was limiting me. And although that's not what I do mental health. I am going to have to step into that and I should get familiar with it. I should start to like it a little more. It'll wait and it'll lessen the weight um of stress that it causes me to deal with sales and finances if I act like I like it and I want to be its friend. Right?
I
So
love that.
I had to reframe the way I speak it, and instead I don't say things like oh, I'm not a salesperson or I don't know anything about it. I changed the language cuz like
Yeah.
we talked about before we started, the language impact your thoughts impact your language impacts behaviors. Um but also because sales isn't my strong suit, I'm continuing to learn. I lean into business coaches. I take I take advantage of like different opportunities that are out there when it comes to, oh, do you want to be linked up with a business coach, or something like that, just leaning into getting advice from others. And then the last thing for me is, in the meantime, as I'm learning, I really lean into social currency. So because I am a communicator and networking is so important, I do think that if you struggle with sales, lean into social currency. And what I mean by that is go out to events, meet more people, let them see your face and know your name, and you will be connected with the right opportunities. And that will have an effect on your sales. People will say, oh, I'll refer them to you, or I'll do this with you. And it'll be a back and forth, a reciprocal relationship. So that's where I'm at this moment.
And there's so much truth in it. I always say that, for the most part, there are these companies that, build big markets through all, marketing and advertising. But for the most part, especially small companies, it's a local type situation. Even if the local is on Zoom, it's still a one-on-one or one to few that allows companies to grow. It's that exposure and awareness. That's what I like about small companies. I think they have a
Yeah.
solid base because they create the loyalty and they're really getting to know their local people. So I think your advice on networking and stuff is such an important aspect of it. Well, you can't speak about sales without talking about the big. I got another big elephant in the room. I got another big one. And this is a big one for a lot of entrepreneurs. Fear. I think if yeah, I got the big one, didn't I, Tiara? I waited so
Yeah.
fast. I have personally always thought and been saddened by it for, I'm going to say humanity. I'm going to say something really ridiculous for humanity, but I feel like fear is the underpinnings of so much grief, sadness, and failure. I think for me, and you can correct me if I'm wrong on this, but it just seems like fear is the kryptonite of the human.
Mhm.
Oh, I like that one. I actually like my own comment here. Katie, put that one down. I like that one. Fear is the kryptonite of the human species. I'm gonna roll. I'm gonna stop there and pass that to you.
Yeah.
What thoughts on fear?
Yeah. I like that. I do like that. Fear is also false evidence appearing real.
Yes.
right?
Yes.
So, with that being said, if you're going to believe in something that you can't see, why not have faith
Yeah. 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 I
instead
love
of
that.
fear?
Why not have faith? Yeah. Why
Right?
not? I love that is such a reframing. Okay, I'm afraid of something I can't see. If I'm going to be afraid of something I can't see, why not just have faith then? Because I can't see that too. I
Yeah.
love it. I love that.
Yeah, but fear will keep us stagnant, and we're here to evolve, right? As we continue to grow in our lives, as we continue to age, as we continue to progress in our careers, we are intended to evolve. And I truly believe that. So if you live in a place of fear, that will stunt your evolutional process. And you want to make it to your highest level. You want to make it to, you know what I mean, the best version of yourself. And we're continuing to strive for it. Obviously, no one's perfect, and we're continuing to learn. You should be a forever student, forever grower. Um, but I think fear is limiting. And it's not easy to get out of. I'm not saying like, okay, stop having fear and just have faith, because I have fear. I have those experiences as well. And for me, fortunately, I can lean into my spirituality, and I can also lean into some of my mental health knowledge of rationalizing a situation. You have, there's a tool called Wise Mind, and that's when you combine your emotion mind with your logic mind, and then it becomes Wise Mind. Because if you operate out of emotion mind, fear is going to take over, right?
Yep,
You're
yep.
pure emotional. If you operate out of logic mind, you're going to say, well, realistically, kind of like me not leaving my job, realistically, if I'm making this amount, then I shouldn't be leaving here. And if I don't leave here, then, and if I stay here, I'll be fine for the next 12 months and da da da. Combine your logic mind with your emotion mind, and that's the wise mind.
I
So
love
you don't
that.
want to
I
lean
love
too
that.
much in either or. Mm-hmm.
I've been saying this a lot too, and it's been something I've always thought, but it's been really on my mind. Like I have such great respect for intellect and intelligent, et cetera, et cetera. But what I really want a lot on my plate right now is wisdom. I want wisdom because to
Right.
me, wisdom is knowing the correct action at the right time based on wisdom. And what you're speaking a lot is the wisdom. And I love your example. You're right. If you stay in your logic, you almost become, I guess that's that paralysis by analysis. You don't move. If you get
Yeah.
the emotion, you don't move. You take the two, you've got the wisdom, you've got the
Yeah.
wise mind. I love that. That's really beautiful.
Yeah. And both lean into fear. That logic mind, you're so logical and calculated because fear of error.
Yeah. Yeah, I can remember for some reason this conversation is bringing up my late 20s, actually early 30s. I was always going forward, but I was doing it with great fear. So on the outside,
Mm,
one of those people that looked so successful, but in the inside, I was really crippled a lot emotionally. I just was such a
yeah.
go-getter. I would keep going. And I remember back, and I was a motivational speaker back in my 30s, believe it or not, but I would talk about something that I did personally where I decided one day, since success, I was all about success. I had to be successful, which comes from the fear of failure, really, is where it comes from, right? So
Hmm.
I decided that I needed to rewrite those two words. It was when I was going through my NLP, and I said, I'm going to write um, fear or failure or success is to have tried, and failure is to not have tried
Mm,
and
hmm.
make it that simple. And that became my motto ever since. And it
Yeah.
goes to your evolution concept. If I at least try, then I
Right.
succeeded. All I gotta do is try. I succeeded. And then I might succeed at choosing something else, but
Right.
I tried.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think that that's an aspect that we need to understand. The other thing I wanted to chat on, you were talking earlier about, basically discipline and organizational skills. To what do you agree, do you think maybe fear can also be overcome by planning? And what I mean by that, another thing I've done with fear is I say, okay, I'll go back to for decades and decades up until just recently. I was a rock climber, and in my height, I would climb with no ropes, and I was considered dangerous by many people. But to me,
Mhm.
I knew my skill level. I knew my skill level. Right? But what I would do before I go on expeditions and do something really crazy is I would make myself sit and imagine all possibilities,
Mm,
including death or whatever. I
hmm.
would accept them as a risk I was going to take, and then I would
Hmm.
try to mitigate them not to happen. And then I would go forward with fear, but I would have a plan. And I think that that same thing can be in entrepreneurship. Okay, if this doesn't work, I've got this backup money. If this doesn't work by this date, I'm going to do that.
Yeah.
Instead of just going forth just blindly with hope. So I think there's a
Yeah.
blind with hope, and then there's a fear with planning. Can you put any of that together into some thoughts?
Well, I love what you said. I mean, being proactive almost always is the solution, you
Yeah,
know?
it is, isn't
Um,
it?
so planning, right? Knowing ahead of yourself and being real with yourself. So sometimes we're not honest with ourselves. The potential of me getting hurt is there, but you don't want to think about it. No, you have to be real with yourself. You have to be real about the situation, how bad it could potentially get, not to harp on it or begin ruminating about it, but to really calculate the success rate or how to navigate this next journey. So I think being proactive is the key. You said it. You really did lay it out. But also in the midst of it, I think assessing your fear is important. I won't go into it, but there's a Julie Brown skills system. So you guys can check out the Julie Brown skills system. But she basically has this label and rating system, and the rating scale lets you know how much an emotion shows up within you. So you have
Okay.
0 through 5. 0 through 3 is a calm only area. So if you're feeling fear at a 0, 1, 2, or 3, 3 is even a full feeling of fear. Then go ahead and do what you're going to do. Go ahead and keep rock climbing. Go ahead and keep going for that job. Go ahead and keep doing, have that difficult conversation because you're feeling fear, but it's not in control. When
Right.
you get to level 4 or 5, 4 would mean that fear is so present that you're dysregulated. Someone might call your name and you're not going to answer. You are almost dissociated. You might be emotionally unstable. If you're at a level 4 and you're feeling fear, don't do whatever you're about to do. And level 5 is if you're harming yourself, harming others, or putting others or destroying property, right? So if you're at level five fear, don't do what you're about to do. So that insight lets you know, okay, stop, assess how intense this emotion is. If my fear is at a 3, then it's there. That happens, go forward, have that fear. But if I feel that my fear is over a level 3, it's at a 4 or 5, maybe don't engage in it, because if I get on that ATV right now and I'm a level 4 fear, my likelihood of crashing or getting out of control is higher, and that is dangerous. So just that self-awareness and insight of how present an emotion is and how much it's impacting your behavior, your actions, your decisions. You got to be real with yourself about that.
I love that. That's great advice. And you know what struck me as you were speaking? Fear in its positive way is helping us to stay safe. It's saying, no, this is
Yeah.
not good. This is not. And it even can go into, I believe, whether you use God or the universe, our intuition trying to say, hello, hello, let me show you.
Yeah.
But so it's a weird emotion to deal with because you want it to be there to tell you not what to do and to stop when you should, but you don't want it to stop you, and you've got to kind of become comfortable and understand it. People used to ask me, how do you climb with no fear? I'm like, no, I have fear. I manage the fear and understand
Yeah.
what it's trying to say. And I think
Right.
entrepreneurship is the same way. You've got to know, when is it telling you, no, there's some insight, don't make this move, don't do this investment,
Mm-hmm.
don't borrow any more money now that you're already in broke, or no, it's
Mm-hmm.
just not having confidence. And I love that. I think it was 3 to 4 is where you start to identify. Can you use past experiences in hindsight to help you then get a baseline for that, Tiera? Is that how you
Yeah.
can use that?
I think looking at how you might have reacted in the past or how a situation might have gone based on your emotions is important. But I like what you said, how fear can be a helpful tool. Any emotion can be a helpful tool. People put bad stigmas around sadness, fear, anger, and things like that. But fear lets you know, okay, I should be aware of my surroundings.
Yeah.
Anger can let you know, I'm in a situation where I was just disrespected, right? Sadness can let you know, wow, have this person's been neglecting me, right? These emotions at a level 3 or lower are actually really insightful and helpful tools to help you stay safe and to help you understand your environment. So yeah, before taking out a big loan, if your fear is impeding, maybe stop, take a
Yeah.
breath and say, okay, why am I feeling that way? There might be a reason, and that might be your intuition telling you this isn't the best decision right now.
Yeah, that's wonderful advice. Speaking of advice, we got a question I'd like to read off exactly how it's written from Anonymous, and it's how do you differentiate between mental health coaching and needing psychological help?
Yeah, I think mental health coaching and needing psychological help. If you're in a space where you're receiving coaching on mental health and just receiving mental health education, I would assume that you might be in a more stable position, a more receptive position in a space to, receive that psychoeducation. Whereas psychological help might require a larger staff or more clinical approaches. Um, if you're getting psychological help, there's all kinds of levels of severity that mental health might be impacting you, right? So you may not be in a place where you're ready to receive. You may not be in a place where you're ready to grow. You may not be in a place where um, you're ready to make sound decisions, but that's the space where you want help. I think when you're tending to your psychological and you need that support, it's important to get a higher level of care to really understand, potentially get a diagnosis just to get clarity on what's going on, and then go from there. It's a more personalized approach, a more clinical approach, and less expectation from you, but more expectation for others to come in and try to support you and help you out of that fog. Whereas if you're receiving mental health coaching, you probably just want that extra mental health education and a little more stability. You have a little more stability, I would say.
Thanks for answering that. Tiara, we're getting several questions, and I want to spend some time talking more about how you structure your services. We're getting a couple questions like, do you have a list of resources? Do you have resources for sales? Do you offer one-on-ones? How do you have coaching? So let's spend more time delving into how people take advantage of your great wisdom and the services that you offer.
Absolutely. So my website, oh, they just put my website in the chat. Thank you,
Katie's
Sammy.
awesome about that.
So if you check out my website, it does have all of my offerings. So when it comes to the coaching, I primarily coach individuals who are in a huge transitional phase of their life, where they have just received mental health, psychological support, and now they're trying to get their lives back and step back into daily living. They're looking to be self-sufficient, enhance their quality of life, things like that. And I support the families of those individuals when it comes to coaching. Now, coaching is the only area where I'm very niched down on that. But please feel free to reach out, let me know about your situation, and put in an inquiry. Um, but on a broader scope, I do offer online courses, workshops, and public speaking engagements. So if you would like me to come into a space and do a speech, or if you would like me to come into a space and facilitate a workshop, I'm more than happy to do so. And then in terms of the online courses, those are geared toward people who basically are looking to gain self-sufficiency, but more courses are to come. So the courses will continue building. So I hope that helps.
Yeah, you know what? I was thinking as you were speaking, Tiara, and I've even thought this over the years. It's like and I think I'm saying this meaning it's a good thing. I think over the decades, the walls between I provide mental health and I'm a psychiatrist, et cetera, and I am a person who isn't identifying that I have a mental health, but I want to do better and I want to understand my own mental health as an
Hmm.
entrepreneurship. Those lines have come down. It used to be, okay, you're either in a situation where you really need to reach out to a professional or just go to somebody and hear some rah rah. We're starting to recognize another way, the way I want to say it is that it seems to me like whether you have a severe traumatic situation or you're just trying to succeed, it's about the same thing. It's just a different level of degree. And I
Yeah,
love that all humans now are wanting to have an understanding of their minds, their emotions, and have a user manual. That's really what I'm saying is we all have a news.
right.
So to me, it's just the degree, but we're all the same. We're all experiencing the same thing. It's just the level of
Yeah.
degree. Your thoughts on that?
I agree. I agree. It's based on the level of severity of what kind of support you're going to need. But again, just like we talked about mental fitness earlier, I think as humans, we all deserve an opportunity to be mentally fit. It's better to take care of it ahead of time. When you feel something coming on, it's better to say, hey, let me get some education on what feelings I've been having, instead of waiting until the last minute where you do need to get a higher level of care or services. So I think all of us could benefit from mental health support, whether it be from a coach, a therapist, going to an actual residential treatment center for a few days or 30 days. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with wanting to enhance your quality of life and doing what it takes based on your level of severity. So
Yeah,
yeah, you're
not
an
to sound,
investment.
yeah, you are,
Mhm.
and not to sound cliche, but I really think we all got to take care of ourselves and love each other. Not to sound cliche,
Yeah.
I
Yep.
really think that with sincerity. I think we have to take care of ourselves first, because when we take care of ourselves first, then we're capable of being there for others. I think for too
Yep.
long we've been trained as a society that we need to be there for others. Well, I think we need to be there for us first.
Yep. Put your own mask on first, just like on the
I use
airplanes.
that
Because
expression all the time.
right, if I pass out, I can't put anybody's mask on. So
I think that, there's as we're coming here to a close, I'm gonna, have you any last comments of the audience, but I have to say that this has been a beautiful conversation. I have
yeah,
thoroughly
I
enjoyed
agree.
it, and I have resonated with so much that you said, and I feel like this was my show for me, okay? I
Yeah.
know, guys, you enjoyed it too, but I feel like I was here for me today because this really made me feel good. But Tier, seriously, last comments you'd like to bring to the audience here?
Continue to love yourself. Again, don't just survive, thrive. You deserve it. You deserve to live your life. You deserve to love yourself, and you deserve to show up for yourself so that you can show up for the people around you that much better. Lean into hope, lean into your mental health toolkit, and lean into your community.
Beautiful. And welcome to the new, 23, 24, you're relatively a new entrepreneur. So welcome to the
Mhm.
entrepreneur community. Beautiful person, Tira. And I wish you and your
Thank you.
great success. I'm going to bring Sadie back. And Tira, I'd say peek in the chat for a second. Take a moment to peek in
Yep.
the chat because the amount of positive comments towards you is just beautiful. So Sadie, I'm going
Thank
to
you.
have you come back and close us down. And as always, guys, Sadie stays behind and she makes sure that the chat stays open so you can get any information, Tira's information, and make any additional comments. But Sadie, was that not a beautiful conversation?
I mean, I just think inspirational is the only way I can describe it. I mean, like we've been doing this for a while, but I mean, this chat today, I mean, it resonated is the only way I can describe it. It's I think today's energy is going to be amazing for the day. I think we are going to be motivated to do a lot and just maybe do a little soul searching today.
Yeah, totally. And a shout out there again to Myra from PCR, SBDC for introducing me to Tira. I've been reaching out and telling people, hey, I want to bring positive people on the show right now with everything's going on. There's Myra in the chat. Thank you so much. Thank you for creating this opportunity to meet Tira. So with that, thank you so much, Tira. And we're out of time, guys. So I want to say thank you to all the new people that were here to see the show today. And thank you as always to my frequent flyer. And Sadie will be here for a while to make sure the chat's open. Reach out to me, reach out to Tira. And thank you again for watching another episode of Small Biz Talk with your host, Lori Williams. And I will see everybody next week. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.